What's up, gents?
Hey, Ash. Matt?
How are you guys today?
Yeah, let me work on the audio here.
I'm just looking where we're live here.
All right, now we are good to go. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Matt.
Ashley,
you guys.
didn't take you long to grow a beard.
Yeah, I learned about beard oil and beard balm last weekend, since this is my first beard ever in my life, and it's pretty cool stuff, man.
At least you'll still have color in your beard. Like all has like a little bit of darker stuff, and then it's all white and gray.
I'm trying to see how I can remove part of it and put it up here.
You gotta cover your yarmulke.
Cover my head here. Well, cool, guys. Thanks for this has been a couple weeks since we did this, and one of the reasons is congratulations, Greg's a new another grandfather again.
Papa G in the house.
Yeah. So congratulations,
Boy
Greg.
or girl there, Greg?
What's that?
Boy or girl?
Girl.
Oh gosh, girls are precious.
Another, that's we now have 5 girls and 2 boys.
I just had my 2 older girls come back for Thanksgiving from college, and one of them lives in San Diego. It was mayhem.
First semester freshman year?
Yeah, it was mayhem at my house for 5 days. Like,
oh, that's wild.
I forgot how crazy it can be with 4 kids in the house.
Well, good. We still have a couple other people streaming in here. So look it's crazy because everybody first, welcome to This Week in Lumber. Matt Beamer, Hampton Lumber Sales, Greg Riley, Sitka, the Sitka USA.
The Sitka.
Yeah, and come on in. Let us know where you're from. We have a lot more people now watching on YouTube, and because it's easier to get on than we do on LinkedIn, so that's been a plus for us watching it on there. Good morning from snowy Spokane, gentlemen. Matt, have you been getting any snow out there? Or are you guys?
No, we had a winter storm last night, so all my garbage and recycling containers got blown across the street. It was really windy and rainy. We had a bunch of power outages in Portland today, but the snow is at higher elevation. So Mount Hood is getting dumped on. They got 2 feet of snow in the last 48 hours. But if you go further north, like Vancouver, BC, and then our Darrington sawmill in northern Washington, they got 10 inches of snow up there.
Wow.
At Darrington overnight. And it definitely snowed in Vancouver proper. So, that cold air is just north of us. It's, I think, 37 degrees here in Portland today, driving into work this morning.
Wow. Yeah, it was cold. It was cold here today on the commute. I walked home last night and it was 60 degrees, and I walked to work this morning. It was at 20-something.
Have you got snow yet?
A little, not on the ground.
Well, it's coming.
A little bit.
Yep, winter's coming.
A little bit. Well, look at fellas. Let's jump into it here after 2 weeks. Kind of my take, talking to you, Matt and Greg. Things are still pretty fluid. There doesn't seem to be the big buyers are kind of out of the market because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle black belts are controlling what they can and can't buy from the ivory towers, it seems like. And so let's just talk about the market dynamics over the past 2 weeks. We kind of saw, and I'm just going to throw that, futures maybe were firming up a bit at the same time. Lumber was kind of squishy. Transactions were made. Mills are looking to move some stuff. So, Greg or Matt, we'll throw it up to you to say what are you seeing over the last 2 weeks since we've before our last show.
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, the one thing I was looking at, futures, we got 17 trading days now where, we've been in, essentially from a 40, like a $40 range in the last 17 trading days, which takes you back it's like almost a month. And during that whole time, cash has just been a drip lower. When we went from a period where 17 trading days, cash was a premium to the futures market. Now, in most cases, most items of cash are discounts. There's there's some debate about the attractiveness of basis trades at this point, and like how much better basis trading is going to get. But the market dynamic from that standpoint is flipped, and why is that? I mean we're currently in the best producing quarter of the year, and the first quarter is the lowest producing quarter of the year. And then I guess you combine that with, like, Ash, what you said is it does appear that normally this time of year there would be some pretty sizable buyers wanting to get some a head start on spring inventory purchasing, and we've probably seen the opposite of that, right?
Yeah, I agree. Before we kick over to Matt, I mean, I've talked to some people that historically bought when they felt they wanted to buy when they're private companies, and they're not doing that right now, right? And look, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just what's going on, and it was going to kind of lead into one of my questions down the road here. So, Matt, what's your thought on what you've seen the last few weeks?
Well, I was looking at a long-term graph of the January contract. If you go back to May and look at the chart, it's a steady downturn from the May timeframe to early September, and then since early to mid September, we basically flatlined. We have had virtually no movement in the January contract since that time frame. So for about 3 months now, we've basically had about a $40 range. We had one small little spike here about a month ago, and the rest of it's just boring. And I guess that tells me that maybe supply and demand have equalized. Even though Greg talks about fourth quarter being a big production quarter, it appears as though the Canadians, specifically the Western Canadians, Canfor and Fraser and Toco, have taken enough production out of the market from their announced curtailments over the last 90 days to at least find equilibrium on supply and demand. So it doesn't appear as though Canadian spruce is overproduced at this point, if you're just looking at charts and graphs. Along the lines of what Greg said, things have been relatively fluid. I mean, the mills have their mind right, whether it's a coastal hemp fir mill or an inland white fir mill or a Canadian spruce mill. They are taking the orders that are offered to them, and those offers might range in a $30 range on a day-to-day trade. You might take a car studs at 400 mil, and then an hour later take another one at 375 mil. But you're just getting all the orders that you can get, and the mills have done a really good job. I can speak on my behalf for Hampton. We've done a good job of keeping our order file reasonable. The last thing you want if you're a sawmill is no order file, right? And so I think that the market is in a good place right now. I think the big majors that you're talking about that normally would be coming in, they might be a little delayed this year. Maybe they're worried about consumer confidence. Maybe they're worried about cash flow. Maybe they're worried about the cost of paying the interest on the debts that they've incurred the last year or two with all the acquisitions that they've made. Who knows? But I don't get the impression that there's a lot of inventory out there that's unsold, whether it's at the mill level or whether it's in the distribution level. So to me, it feels like just a good old trading market, like a good old fashioned, what we've been doing for most of our careers here, finding orders and finding mills that want to participate.
Yeah, Matt, it's back to what you're saying on mill. There's a large mill that keeps a lot of wood at distribution centers in the U.S., and I've heard from a handful of other sellers and buyers out there that they're basically saying, come to us with all your offers that you get after you get from your other sellers, and we'll match them or beat them. And they're taking the business, and they've got wood on the ground in amongst the Midwest on a bunch of stuff. And that's what they should be doing, is moving in moving stuff. And what I would tell people is I'd go back to that mill and just tell them, just use it for your advantage. Get the best price you can if you can do that. You know, I mean, you want to buy. A guy that trained me one time told me you want to buy when people want to sell, and not. He may or may not be on this call right now. So it makes a lot of sense, right? And that's the truth. And right now, mills want to sell, and I think both Greg, you and Matt are right. Where Greg was having a conversation with me last night, and I was thinking about it on the way home. And he's like, "Hey, Ash," he goes, and we'll go into this. So we're going to go into seasonal strength coming up here, traditional, and it sure doesn't feel like it right now. But like Greg was saying last night, I'll kind of summarize what you were saying, Greg. Maybe these mills clean up everything they need to clean up into the end of the year. They have their shutdowns in the East like they normally do, and then we kind of see what it's a new game. Then kind of end of December going into January. What is that kind of summary? What you were saying, Greg?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and really, I mean, when I think about the market, the markets have, think back on the last, couple of years, and the markets always do what people don't expect them to do, right? No one expected to see the kind of volatility that we saw, again and again, and those prices. I'm just trying to think of going like, well, what would be the big surprise that changes the dynamics at this point in terms of what everyone's thinking is? And because, if I think of housing, hey, pending home sales came out today, down again. The financial network airways are filled with people telling what we were talking about 6-9 months ago about how housing was going to slow. Now everyone knows that housing is slowing, right? Just as now interest rates are starting to lower back, and then I'm not saying that the cycle. The guy at Bank of America was on and said, "Oh yeah, the housing pain will last for 2 more years." Okay, so that's a backdrop that all of the the C-suite is looking at. Is, hey, we've got a slowing housing market. So my question is always, what could be different that would change?
Yeah. Yeah, no, quite. So it's real quick. Billy G was saying selective purchases sway to manufacturers as they are enticed with January delivery. There is a merit in believing that downside risk is minimized on several items. And I think that kind of goes back to your basis trading idea too, Greg. I mean, there's some items that have sold off pretty good, but you and I were talking the other day. Isn't it amazing how when you think something's cheap, you come in the next day and where it trades at, it's even cheaper.
Yeah,
you had a good point.
I mean, when you think about, hey, when we were at 4-digit numbers, man, I knew that there was, 100, 200, hundreds of dollars of price risk. When you're down in like the numbers we're at now, I didn't think there was $100 of price risk on some things, but oh boy, there is.
What's the one thing that you said today? But your inventory, your on-hand inventory cost gets right-sized when
the market ralies.
Yeah,
you cannot average down your costs to get to the market. You just pile more wood that's above the market.
No doubt. And David N was saying from YouTube, he said, Matt, take a drive down the eastern seaboard. I'm seeing more prompt euro on the ground available for sale than I have all year. All items, all ports, too many offerings and emails versus inquiry emails. Well, one of the things I do see, I mean, I see what you're saying, Dave. Every time I drive into a reload, in any market, I see there's a lot of wood, right? I think there's probably some more offerings, but I don't think there's. Maybe you guys are, Greg, you're in the Euro market a lot. What's your feeling to tell Dave on that one? I mean, I don't drive up and down the seaboard, so he may be right on that. I don't know what's your feeling here.
There's no more or less Euro wood available than there has been all along. There's just the pool of buyers is not as deep as it was because you've got several factors that people that have stepped away from supporting that market, and yeah, there's going to be some like crazy cheap prices you're going to hear over the next week or two on Eurowood being traded. I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it already today. I mean, they're probably unsustainable levels.
I will tell you this, Greg. I know the stuff that you list on our platform and what other Euro people list on their platform have gone to people that traditionally were unable to buy Euro when it was really fluid. So what this is doing is giving people that it would never had the chance in the supply chain to get Euro buying it. I'm talking about the small places in Indiana. I mean, we're shipping stuff all the way from Florida up to Indiana and Ohio and Iowa. So there's a good opportunity. But yeah, I mean, that's a great reason. The main people that you would come in and buy 100 trucks from one of these people at once aren't out there buying 100 trucks.
Well, you got to think about the change in the market dynamics in terms of relative demand also. You know, what the demand right now is disproportionate to multifamily. The thing that slowed the most is single family. So, you know, when will single family stop slowing and stabilize, and maybe in some markets pick up? Probably, yeah. It's probably second quarter. It's probably off a ways, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
you can see it in certain products in terms of relative strength. Also, I mean, 10-foot studs. Oh boy, they've just collapsed.
So, real quick. So, how are both of you running? Without giving away, how are you both running? You both keep inventory traditionally, and are some of the biggest players in the places that you keep it at. Matt, Texas, I think of you every time I think of Texas. If I want to know the go-to guy and what the price is at number 3, I think of you immediately because you do that. Greg, Northeast, 104 and 5A studs. I think of you because, I mean, you know every day, both of you, what the right buy and sell is there. How are you running your traditional inventories right now with all of this?
I'm trying to keep my inventory like at a manageable level, and I think that number. I guess I look at the total footage. I don't really look at the dollar amount. I look at the total footage of unsold inventory that I have on a day-to-day basis. I get a report every day that shows me what I have. And I have been able to keep my inventory within my own personal goalposts, right? So I have like a budget, a mental budget. And Hampton has an actual budget for me too, but I'm nowhere near my top end of, I'm keeping about maybe half to 2/3 of what my top end inventory allowance would be. And that's about my comfort zone right now. I want to keep about half as much as I was keeping during the good times and just turn it as fast as I can. And then at some point in time here, the price of lumber will start to go back up again, right? And as to Greg's point, you know, what I've been doing for the last 6 months is just churning through my high priced inventory, shedding that, and then trying to replace it, you know, on a real limited basis. So if I sold 2 trucks, maybe I'd buy 1 truck back. And every time I buy something back, it's just cheaper, right? And the price of stuff has just gone down continually for 6 months. Now it's starting to sort of compress. And we'll see if we get a bounce or not. I think we will. I think the railroads will find a way to screw things up again about the same time that people want to start buying some lumber again. And eventually demand will increase and the mills will have enough of an order file to start pushing prices back up again. But it's going to take some time. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. But in the next 90 days, I wouldn't be shocked at all if we had a nice rally.
So I always hate bringing these things up. Rail strike. Greg, thoughts?
What? I'm a union man, you know, and so I don't like telling the union what to do, but they got to go to work. You know, history of rail strikes are a big zero, and so you know this is another zero. The talk on the financial networks about the rail strike reminds me a lot about like government shutdowns. It's like ends up being a whole lot of hand wringing that ends up being meaningless.
Yeah. One of the guys here just showed me basically it sounds like they're imposing a go back to work initiative. Does that make sense? I don't know what happened.
They haven't left work, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the issue for me. I just think that the CN in particular manages to really stop hauling lumber for about 90 days every year, and it really messes up people's plans for the first and second quarter. And we've seen this pattern for years now. This isn't me just imagining it. It happens every year for like the last 5-6 years. Last I checked, they didn't hire any more people, and they didn't add more choo-choo trains to their tracks. So I'm guessing they'll probably do it again this year. And then that has the secondary effect of messing up the transportation on the UP and the BN as well, and the NS and the CSXT. So even if there isn't a strike, even if there's nothing that has to do with labor issues, the railroads have a proven track record of not performing very well in the wintertime, and especially when it comes to lumber. So for whatever reason, they don't really seem to care that much about the lumber industry from December through March.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with obviously like lower demand, probably lower overall production. How that's gonna affect things in the first quarter. That'll be a real question.
Well, I'm really excited too that we've avoided all the questionable websites pinging us in the comment so far this morning. But
the bots haven't gotten to us yet. There you go.
It's like
where's my
they're looking for us.
We just don't want to get the administration censors starting to look at our content.
So hey, Billy G was saying lots of Euro agreed in 12 and longer. Yeah, Bill, I've seen a lot of 12s around also for sure. And Eastern mills will need to be dependent on for 10 footers and shorter. That's a good point. Let's just talk about some of the different items, Matt. So Hem-fir studs, I still keep getting those put up really inexpensive on the platform. Dry Doug fir traded pretty low too, 500 equivalent Texas on 104 and 5/8. And which is crazy because that was $100 different a week and a half ago, right? It's $100 a difference per thousand. What's the dynamics going on the Pacific Northwest on the different species right now?
Well, like I said, we've been able to keep our feet in the water and our order files out enough where, we're able to withstand, I guess, the drop in prices and still sell lumber, right? So we're not just sitting here watching prices drop and not participating in any trades. We're trading. We're finding enough liquidity on a day-to-day basis to just, keep things moving. And if that changes, I'll let you guys know, but it hasn't changed all year. Really, we've had a huge sell-off here since last June. If you want to look back at the numbers that we were trading at in June versus today, you're talking like $800 to $1,000 across the board on every item. And yet throughout that entire period, I have rarely run into lack of liquidity. I mean, it's only happened maybe a few weeks out of that 6-month period. So I kind of like the way the market is right now. I feel like we're kind of in an equilibrium stage. There's a little extra Euro coming, which we knew about. I think that's been talked about. That really doesn't have that big of an impact on stuff that I'm doing in the western half of the United States. It just doesn't make it that far out here, right? But I think that white lumber, so I'm talking like spruce, hemlock, white fir, ponderosa pine, anything that you call whitewood species of lumber is just skipping along the bottom right now. And then dry Doug fir and green Doug fir are probably, they enjoyed a $200-300 rally because the Weyerhaeuser strike, and now they're deflating a little bit. And at the same time, the Canadians are starting to produce more dry Doug fir as well. So you're going to see some competition there that's going to bring you're already seeing it, driving the prices lower. But at some point in time, you go below the cost of production, and that's why the Canadians have slowed their production down. They're just not making the kind of money that they were making, and I think maybe they learned something in the last 2 years. Maybe they learned that they don't have to be the world's biggest producers and make everybody else shut down. Maybe they can just take some time off and keep their prices higher, make a little bit more money.
The thing that both what you and Greg and Matt are saying, what's interesting is every day I come in, you hear about all this wood, every bit of wood that ever gets gets produced, gets sold at a number, and it is getting sold. And one of the highlights that I've seen, and maybe both of you see this, is we've had a lot of multifamily people. I know the big business we've had this month. We've had our biggest month in almost this year, has been going to reload facilities or job sites for multifamily construction, and which is a plus. I'm sure it's business that had been in the works already, but there's more coming out. We had some more come through today, right? So I mean, multifamily still is, in my opinion, a bright spot of the market right now. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it, and it's continues, and it's going to continue to be that way. I think at least through the first half to 3/4 of next year. Like I said, is if we're thinking that the chance for single family to stabilize and resurge is probably 3 or 4 months off. That'll be the interesting dynamic. But yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game for right now, for sure.
I'm kind of curious, Ashley. Greg might have an opinion on this, but alluding to the euro that's on the East Coast, if there's that much euro sitting around in ports in the East Coast, at some point in time, are they going to cry uncle at the pricing? Because a lot of that lumber I'm seeing is offered to me with a 4 on front of it. And how much freight does it cost to get over here from Europe and go through the port and the stevedoring and all that stuff? You got to think the mill net return at some of these prices. Like somebody offered me some 2x4 12-foot tune better premium the other day for $425 picked up at a reload. I mean, that sounds to me like $300 lumber. FOB, a European sawmill.
Matt, I can get it for you at 400.
I bet. I'm just saying that, like, that's really a low price, right? I mean,
but Matt, my point is, that's what I'm saying is, I look at, some of the numbers that are trading with 3 handles on them, right? And when you're netting that back to the FOB mill price, you're talking about numbers in the 2s, right? And you take 8% tax off of that. I mean, it's like when I look at number 3 at like $200 Western Mill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are numbers that are long-term unsustainable, probably. The question's going to be, I think, mills in general over the last 2 years with the numbers, their cost structures changed dramatically from 2 years ago. Cost of labor, cost of all their input prices, right? So, what's the mill's ability to address their costs and lower those costs is going to be probably something that's going to be real important for 2023 to see, how we get the quote unquote. We need Russ Taylor in here. Let's get him in talking mill break even.
Yeah. No doubt about that. No doubt.
We might get Russ in next week so we can talk some cost numbers, huh?
Hey, just real quick, back to the poll that you did 2 or 3 weeks ago when we were talking, and it's kind of, if I'm looking, this is playing out like that, like you thought it would. Does that make sense?
What's amazing, Ash, is I was thinking about this before, is how when you think things are going to happen a certain way, and then they happen, but you're still surprised.
Exactly.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's me right now. I'm like, hey, didn't we call this? And like, why am I surprised? I don't know.
Yeah, Zach Brannick was saying, and add energy hikes in Europe too to the production costs, right?
Oh gosh, they have some real problems on energy costs in Europe, don't they? I mean, we're seeing them here in the United States, but not to the extent that, like Germany, for example. How would you like to be a German citizen right now, having to pay your heat bill?
I mean, I feel that'd be far superior than being a Ukrainian.
So I've got to bring this.
I still look at that. It's like, those people, we can't do enough to help those people. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible.
Well, so a
This is
couple
a
comments here.
beautiful, beautiful society. Like life is really good, and now, I mean, you know, dark ages. Back to the dark ages.
Couple comments here. I asked how people like the program, and Bob Schneider said best insight in the lumber and OSB industry by far. So Bob, like you win the viewer of the year. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it because without you guys,
checks in the mail.
Dave Stalkop,
paid sponsorship. We do have Ashley. In keeping with like a lot of this stuff, we're going to have to start, be really careful as we analyze our sponsors. We don't want to be misaligned. I'm just glad that we turned down that FTX sponsorship.
Yeah, he wasn't. He kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. I'm glad we did too.
What do you mean turned it down? Hey, so Dave Stalkop was saying also Materials Exchange. I go out of my way, whether I'm in the U.S. or overseas, to tune in. Thank you for the great service you do for our industry, Dave. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you you listening to us. Russ Taylor, BC sawmills are deep in the red right now, hence curtailments. So Russ, appreciate it, and I can just imagine Russ watching it and listening to some of our statistics sometimes.
Yeah, he's got to roll. He's got to roll his eyes. But Russ, I love you, man. I'm always happy to give you a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, everybody.
Yeah, the thing about the BC sawmills there. This is why I was kind of curious looking at the futures chart this morning, because I've noticed that the volatility of futures has really shrunk quite a bit, right? So when I started charting it, I realized that we haven't really moved for 75 days. That the curtailments that we kind of poo-pooed that were announced back in August are actually having an effect, right? They're actually doing the job that they needed it to do. My question is, do they have enough discipline to maintain that through the first quarter? I think they will. I do. I really do.
I challenge that the curtailments that were announced are having an effect, as much as what the market is telling us is that the current prices are unsustainable. Remember I talked about 2 months ago, cash was a premium to the futures market, right? And now cash has moved to a discount to the futures. What that's saying is buy cash, buy what's cheap and sell what's expensive. The market is telling us that, the market is telling us that you want to be buying cash lumber today.
Right,
That's
for sure, at a discount.
Well,
the other thing is, BC, you guys, we don't talk about this very much, but the politics of British Columbia has changed drastically towards the forestry industry. So the BC government is not near as friendly to Fraser, Canfor, Toco, Hampton as they used to be 10 years ago, back when they had a real severe beetle kill problem and they had a bunch of trees that need to get harvested in a short period of time. At that moment, 10, 12, 13 years ago, the BC government was all behind their industry. And they've changed. The BC government, they've voted in new people and they've got new ministers, and they're not doing any special favors for the lumber industry anymore. It's different now. So these mills are going to have to be more disciplined, like self-disciplined, because they don't have the government to bail them out, is the point I'm making.
I'm going to give everybody a tease for next week. We've got a big announcement about what something could happen next year that would just really blow this industry's mind. So there's my tease for next week, Ash. But for this week, everybody should get on the platform. Bids and offers. That's what you got to do. You got to be up on the platform. If you're not in, you can't win.
So we have 4 new sales. One person just started last week, and we have 3 more people starting over December here. So we have I'm looking around, we have a full office here. It feels it feels rocking again, right? So we're going to release some videos, one today actually coming out, and you're going to be excited to see. And I'll give you a little teaser next week. We've got a new Weston. What are we calling this? 2 point something, or what's the name of this new platform going to be? The 3000. It's going to be. We're going to launch this
MX 3000.
Yeah, and it's
Nice, I love
amazing
it.
the capabilities of it. So look at all we're trying to do is create equal access to the supply chain and create information flow, bids and asks, point click buy, point click sell. And again, everybody, Matt and Greg, thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
And we'll look forward to doing this again next week.
See you
All
guys.
right.
Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Take it easy.